Welcome to Black, Queer, and Trans Land, Part 2, Stewards of Black Futures. I am Sasha Alexander, the founder and co-director of Black Trans Media. I use the pronouns she and he and they, and insist that you mix it up or use my name. And I am coming in to you here live from Lenapehoking land, also known as Brooklyn. If you have any access needs, let us know. There is ASL support and captions are available. And we want to shout out and thank Rodney and Kafi. So for folks who didn't get to see our part one, as more and more of our folks are getting onto the land, Black folks, Black, queer, and trans folks, how are we nourishing those connections and the issues facing our community? This panel tonight is a really exciting dynamic lineup coming to you from all over. Moderated by myself, we have Kayla Gore of My Sister's House, Naima Penniman of Soulfire Farm, and WILDSEED Community Farm and Healing Village, and Marlow White of Soul to Soul Community Farm Stand, Under Umbrella, Trans in Harlem, and so much more you're gonna hear about tonight. We're gonna be talking about our relationships to the land and to the work we're doing, and in some ways thinking about the ecology of our Black liberation and the ecosystems that we have each created and are nourishing the complex networks to be able to achieve the things we're doing. And tonight on the line, you're gonna hear from these incredible folks about the projects they're doing. And so without further ado, we're gonna jump right into it. Our first panelist is Kayla Gore. Kayla works to help organize and conduct outreach and advocate for the rights of women, especially transgender women. Kayla's most recent work with hashtag Tiny House Project MSH, with the goal of developing tiny homes for Black, trans, and brown women is incredible. Project details can be found on My Sister's House website, www.mshmemphis.org. And if you didn't know about Kayla, she is the co-founder and executive director of My Sister's House, an incredible project building tiny houses for Black trans women and our communities out of Memphis. So excited to welcome her here on the line. Thank you for being here with us, Kayla.
Thank you for having me.
And earlier we were talking about, we could hear the storm in the background. You were telling us what's happening down there. And I'm excited to hear from you to tell us more. Our first question we're gonna throw out to all of our panelists is just to tell us more about you and what your work on the land looks like. And what was your journey to get to this place? And how you're nourishing the land and space for Black, trans, and queer communities.
Thank you for the question and thank you for sharing this space with me. Yeah, so that sums up the work that we're doing here. We're providing emergency and permanent housing for Black trans women and brown trans women living here in Memphis. How it came about was during the pandemic. We were only doing emergency housing. We could only house 4 people at a time. And it's on a temporary basis because the demand is so high for emergency housing for trans people, particularly in the South. But during the beginning of the pandemic and the Black uprising, people didn't have jobs. You know, people were not afforded the opportunity to pay their bills. And for a lot of Black and brown trans people, we didn't have typical leases that were legally binding contracts, which meant, you know, you could be kicked out for not paying your rent and there will be no recourse that you could take in order to get your money back, or, you know, you're protected by the moratoriums that were put in place. Those weren't realities for Black and brown trans people. So of course we saw an influx in people needing housing, people who never thought in a million years they would need that type of support from us, but they were needing that and we couldn't provide it. So we wanted to think of what was a way we could provide safety and stability for trans people in the form of housing that's permanent. And we thought about tiny homes because we learned that you build houses and the cost of the house is determined by the square footage. So the smaller we build, the more we can build. And then we started the land acquisition process where we acquired maybe, I want to say right under 10 lots that we have so far. They're all in one particular area. It's Glenview, which is a historic district. It's a Black historic district here in Memphis, Tennessee. And we bought up about maybe 60% of the lot of the block, where we're at building houses, where we have built houses, and where we're renovating houses. To date, we have 5 homes. We have plans to build 5 more homes by the end of this year, by December of 2022, which will provide housing for the rest of 10 trans people's lives. And there's been so much support around the project that we want to be able to expand the tiny house project to not only respond to the growing need of home ownership for Black trans people, but for all LGBTQ people here in Memphis. Throughout the whole process, I've learned how owning and cultivating the land and communities where I grew up that are kind of almost abandoned. If it's not $1 million house, then they're really not concerned about it in the historic district, in the Black historic district anyway. But these are neighborhoods that were once rich, and people saw promise in these neighborhoods, and that promise was somehow just taken away because it was a Black neighborhood where there were Black businesses on every corner. There were Black schools that are no longer there anymore. There were Black companies and factories, and there were beautiful Black families everywhere. And now you see a lot of blight, but as we've come into the community and we've been able to cultivate the land and not only build houses, but build community spaces for not only our trans people to come in and appreciate, but everybody in that neighborhood to appreciate, it really opened up a lot in me. Because it was like, not only are the people who are receiving the houses appreciative of what's going on, but the people in the community are. They stop, they take pictures in front of our mural. We're hoping this summer they're gonna start using our grill so that we can build community in more ways than one. There are no parks in this historic district. And this is like our give back to the community to say, this is a space where you can come and you can bring your family, no charge, use our grills, use our facilities. And we think that will help build community space, and it's dead center in the middle of all of our tiny homes. So yeah, that's that in a nutshell.
That in a nutshell is incredible. And when we were thinking about ecosystems, sometimes people don't think about the neighborhood, as part of that ecosystem, but building 5 houses, building 5 more, and creating space long-term, like you said, that's 10 people who are gonna have a house for the rest of their life. That's incredible. And you're in a neighborhood that's gonna have cultural, has a mural up and has facilities for people. It's beautiful. It's super beautiful. Whew, thank you so much, Kayla, for sharing that. We're gonna pivot to our next panelists. Each of these panelists are just incredible people doing incredible work. And so it's super exciting that you get to hear from each of them individually, and then we're gonna get to talk together. This next panelist, also an incredible visionary. Naima Penniman is a freedom foraging futurist rooted in her ancestors' brilliance, a devotee of seeds, a soulful storyteller, a multidimensional artist, movement builder, medicine grower, healer, and educator, co-founder of WILDSEED Healing Village, director of education at Soulfire Farm, and a healing practitioner at Harriet's Apothecary. Naima devotes creativity and collaboration towards planetary interdependence. Published in All We Can Save, We Are Each Other's Harvest, Farming While Black, Climbing Poetry, and Samia's, Naima's poetry has inspired thousands of people and movements across the world. So really excited to ask the same question to you, Naima, about your journey onto the land. And I'll say it again, just can you share what your work on the land looks like and what that journey to get to this place has been like? and how you're nourishing land and space for Black, trans, and queer communities.
Thank you, Sasha. What a blessing to be here and be part of this conversation. Kayla, I'm so lit up and inspired over here listening to all you shared. Thank you for the work you're holding down in Memphis. And yeah, just thrilled we get to be in dialogue. This is so deep to my heart, and I'm beaming in from Mohican lands here at Soul Fire Farm right now, and stewarding 2 land-based projects, both Soul Fire Farm and WILDSEED Community Farm and Healing Village. And you know, I really am a child of the earth. And so this work is full circle homecoming for me. I was blessed to grow up really close to the ecosystem that I belong to in my early years, and have like deep kinship and partnership with the natural world, and made a commitment, you know, that I would forever partner with the earth for our collective survival. You know, really recognizing how much, you know, our healing is bound up in each other. And I remember as a, you know, androgynous and multiracial kid growing up in the woods, feeling like I didn't belong anywhere except for like in that deep wild. And so it's an exciting time to be building and strengthening community where more Black and Brown and Indigenous, queer and trans folks are reclaiming our rightful relationship and belonging with the land, because I really see it as a source of our sustenance and our healing. And in terms of the work, I can speak briefly to both projects. So Soul Fire Farm, we are an Afro-Indigenous community farm, and we're really committed to uprooting racism and seeding sovereignty in the food system. And this project started in 2006, really with the intention to grow an abundance of food for folks who are living under food apartheid conditions, who are surviving mass incarceration, and who are refugees and new Americans and immigrants. And on this land here that have been deemed not suitable for farming and marginal lands for farming, through our Afro-Indigenous farming practices, we've been able to, you know, triple like the topsoil depth and turn what had been really degraded hardpan land into a food oasis. And so a big part of our mission to this day continues to be to get food to the folks in our community who need it most through a no-cost doorstep delivery program called Solidarity Share. And the second big part of the work is to train others in how to grow their own food and medicine. And so we welcome over 1,000 people to the land every year to learn with us, and do everything from day-long to week-long immersion programs, and are really, you know, determined to help equip the rising and returning generation of Black and Brown folks, many of whom are queer and gender nonconforming and trans, and yet having the tools that we need to reclaim a dignified relationship to land. And then the third huge part of the work is the movement building, the systems change work. You know, there's so much that we need to make right in both our food system and also how we distribute land. You know, the way that land is distributed is more racially skewed than it ever has been before. And so we're doing work to push reparations as well as rematriation, working to create better standards for the folks who are doing the labor to bring food to our tables, and yet organizing with like national and even international alliances around food sovereignty. So that's so far in a nutshell. I'm blessed to be, you know, deeply in our education programs here at Soulfire, and a lot from the experiences of like, the felt experience of being in community and interdependence through this work is what helped me know what could be possible with WILDSEED. You know, really rekindled in me a vision to cultivate community on land that could be a site for creativity and collective healing and cooperative economics for those of us who have been dispossessed from our rightful relationships to land. And I know the sense of belonging that I felt, as a child, being in kinship with the natural world around me is all of our birthright, but through displacement, forced migration, incarceration, colonization, so many of our people have been denied it. So I've been strengthened learning more about our lineages from, maroon communities forming autonomous close-knit societies to Fannie Lou Hamer building a cooperative farm in Mississippi with Black farmers who've been expelled from the lands that they sowed. That really strengthened the flame in me to say, all right, we need to create a liberated zone for Black, Indigenous, and other people of the global majority to practice our interdependence and sovereignty together. And so WILDSEED is an expression of that vision and is, it's a ground to plant our wildest dreams as BIPOC and queer folks. And we've been doing all kinds of stuff in the past 6 years now, like establishing gardens and wildcrafting herbs and making medicine and holding ceremony, throwing parties and rituals and creating childcare spaces, building shrines, devising poetry, and really growing a lot of our African and Indigenous heritage foods, hosting trainings and retreats and residencies, providing affordable housing to folks in our community, as well as land for folks to grow. And yeah, I would say the Rites of Passage program for youth has been really important, like to support our young folks and rekindling that flame early on. And yeah, really getting a chance to be in like reciprocity and ritual with the land and with each other has been hugely healing, I think, for all of us. So yeah, I'll end there. Thank you.
No, ashe to all that work. It's so important, not only the work of reparations to get land for our communities, but the Afro-Indigenous farming, filling our tables, just practicing interdependence together. When we think about what's going on in the world, sometimes it's hard to remember people are planting their wildest dreams, our wildest dreams, and that it's happening. So it's so important to hear about Soulfire Farm, to hear about WILDSEED Community Farm and Healing Village, to hear about the work Kayla's doing down there. And I'm excited because next up is incredible work right here in our own backyards, especially if you're over in Harlem. And I'm excited to introduce this next panelist. Again, another incredible leader, visionary, doing amazing things. We have Marlow. And Marlow's family history has always been and is still rooted in Beaufort, South Carolina, also known as Ladies Island. Marlow is a person of service who holds an unmatched passion for people and a burning desire to unite folks from across all corners of the community. The founder of Under Our Umbrella and Soul to Soul Community Farm Stand was the culmination of a lifelong desire to fill a hole that exists in the Central Harlem community, to address the mental health, nutrition, and physical wellness of Black and trans folks who have been historically underserved in our own backyards. Marlow is a husband, a father, a community organizer, and his work centers on serving families of all shapes and sizes. Very excited to have Marlow on the line and to throw this same question to you, Marlow, about sharing with us more about what your work has looked like on the land and your journey and how you are nourishing our communities.
Good evening, everybody. Peace and blessings. Thank you, Sasha, Kayla, Naima, and everyone else here. Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful hearing the work you're doing, Kayla. I'm like, I gotta come to Memphis. Check it out, check you out and all the beautiful houses. It's very, very, very interesting, very, very interesting. I'm excited about that. And Naima, I've actually been to, WILDSEED. I was invited by Chino for the New Legacy event that he had. And I'm gonna tell you, it was so beautiful. My mom was there, she's 82. My sister was there. That's my Ra-Da-Da sister. She was there. My grandniece was there. My daughter was there. She's 10 now. She was 9 then. Most beautiful. And when I say, I mean, because where we come from on the island, that's how we grew up. It was a village celebration.
That's right.
You know, honor our elders, our ancestors, you know, and we all have different ways of doing that, but I felt that there. I was so connected to the land, to the earth, the people, the love. I mean, it was so amazing. My mom had such a beautiful time. It was really, that's gonna be like, we still talk about it. You know, we still talk about it. We still talk about it, and it will forever be a part of our memory, you know, and our legacy too, you know. And my daughter, you know, like, you know, it's just gonna be a part of the stories of our families, you know.
Good things.
Yes.
That means so much to hear, Marlow. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for creating the space and, you know, and standing up and fighting for us, you know. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it's all about that intergenerational love. I'm so glad to hear that so many members of your family could be on that land. That lights me up. Thank you.
Yes. As for me, you know, I've been a son of Harlem for over like 20 years. As I mentioned, you know, I grew up between New York City and spent my summers like a lot of Black young folks in the South with my grandma. Every summer, my mom and dad dropped us off and we spent our summers there, you know. And so growing up on the land down there, I really, to be honest with you all, I'm a late bloomer in a lot of things and transitioning and really appreciating the land and where I come from. You know, my life took a different turn. You know, at 15, I left home. You know, I've been addicted to drugs. So it's taken me a long time to get to where I am. But I'm right where I'm supposed to be. You know, at the time I'm supposed to be here. And I know that. And so, you know, here, you know, we had created Under Umbrella. And through having that kind of upbringing, it just made me create that here where I live at. I've been in Harlem for about 20 years. I transitioned in the very neighborhood I live in. I'm sitting in the community room where I live at. You know, I helped to establish where I live here in Harlem. It was a HPD building. Now we're a low income co-op. When I lived here, the folks that live here now, they would have never lived here. They would have been scared because the building was like condemned. There's only 10 of us in here. You know, there's 24 units now. Some are rentals, some of us are shareholders. And so I built a lot of community here through my life, through my lived experience. You know, I remember when I first moved around here, you know, I didn't quite look like this, you know, and, you know, there's been a lot, there were a lot of challenges, you know, because folks weren't used to gay people or trans people or people just being themselves, you know, and I'm very much that because I was very loved by my family, you know, so I never really got to feel like kind of awkward in that way about my identity because my family always embraced me, you know, so I didn't really care about what anybody else thought. And just through those relationships and being here, it made me realize how much that needed to be created here through the relationships I had. And so me and my wife created Under Umbrella. And Under Umbrella, we created programming and workshops for cisgendered women and trans women. And so we had workshops and book studies. We've had yoga for families, you know, and I think that most importantly, it's important for people to realize that we're people. You know, I'm much more than my trans experience. I'm a dad, I'm a son, and I'm a community member. And so the most important thing is like what we all have to bring to the table. What do we need and what do we want? And how are we going to get that together? You know, and so through that, I just, you know, continue to build relationships with people. And that's how I've been able to build the programming that we built here. We've had many, like I said, we've had yoga for families, fitness classes, book studies. And it's not just for one kind of people, it's for all people, Black people, trans people. And, you know, I'm a little more shy than the rest of the rest of the folks on the panel. So, you know, then through Under Umbrella, I realized that I was asked to manage a farmer's market, and it was my daughter's aunt's farmer's market, South Bronx Farmer's Market. And I was there for 2 years as the market manager. And what I realized through my work is that I've always been a people person. And so I realized how important food was there, and I didn't realize that the food that I was eating before I became the market manager and I began to learn about where my food came from was that it was kind of eating poison. You know, the food was filled with chemicals. I forgot that, you know, food could be grown naturally without chemicals, and I realized that that food is what we needed. And through working at the market and building relationships, I realized that I wanted to have that right here in Harlem. So I created the community farmers market at Adam Clayton Powell. And then we had to revamp that. And last year we reopened that Soul to Soul community farm stand. So we were able to accept WIC, food stamps, EBT, and be able to support the whole community, because food is important for everybody. You know, fresh food and local grown food is important to everybody. So we just want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to eat fresh local fruits and vegetables. We want to make sure that people have an opportunity to not have to shop in the supermarkets, just be in the supermarkets in our neighborhoods. You know, we also have nutritional programs too, to give educational portion so folks understand how to cook their foods. You know, we have a kids corner, so when the parents are shopping, the kids get to sit and do something so the parents can shop peacefully. I've just learned so much in this time. Like I said, I've been a late bloomer in a lot of things, but I never stopped trying to learn. I never stopped trying to make connections. I never stopped trying to build community. I never stopped trying to get people to understand that we all have to do this together. You know, being able to be in the space that I am and be in my community allows an opportunity to have been able to build those particular connections and to bring people together. And we look to do that more and more, you know, with what we're doing here. We'll be open this summer. You know, I hope everyone comes to see us. Like I said, I'm a little nervous. I'm gonna be honest about that. I think that's one of the best things about being a human being and being me. You know, to be able to be honest and say that, like, I'm a little nervous, so I'm a little babbly. However, you know, we have our social media page. Y'all can check that out. When I'm on the video, I don't seem so shy.
No, you're brilliant. Everything you shared is absolutely brilliant. I mean, the long-term work, just securing the building there. I mean, get space and land all over. We have all sorts of different dynamics that we all have to navigate. And also just what you talked about, you know, being trans people, you know, navigating these dynamics in our neighborhoods and our communities, and how important a part of the ecosystem we are, you know, what we bring to the table whenever we bring it, you know, is so important. And you certainly didn't babble. You're doing exactly what we're here to do, which is to get into this, you know, this conversation that's juicy and it leads many places. And you all already talked so beautifully about why it's so important to think about land and space for Black, trans, and queer communities. But I would certainly throw that out. We're going to move to this next portion of our conversation where throw out questions and hear from our panelists as they want to chime in. And also shout out to everybody listening in to Movement for Black Lives and Black Trans Media, Black, Queer, and Trans Land Stewards. We're so excited for you all to be here with us and all of our panelists. So this next question we're going to get into is more so maybe what's at stake right now, right? You all talked about all the beautiful work you're doing and how important it is. But when you think about maybe the particular moment we're at right now as Black folks, or even Black, trans, and queer folks, what is so important about doing this right now in this time, do you think, anyone?
I think that it's really important because of for me, as a father, I have all girls, you know, I think about the challenges they're up against. I think about being, you know, even as a Black person, there's a lot of challenges happening here sometimes, you know, but no matter what, you know, I know that I have to keep moving forward, because if I don't do it, who's going to do it for me? You know, and so it's like, got to keep it moving no matter what, you know, we got to find our strength, you know, that strength lies within each other. You know, that strength lies within ourselves. You know, there's been so many times I've been so doubtful of myself. You know, even when I was talking a few minutes ago, it's like, sometimes I feel that way, but I know that, like, no matter what, like, I got to keep moving. I've been discriminated against, you know what I'm saying? I deal with racism in my own community, people looking at me like, what are you doing here? And I'm looking at them, no, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? Because you're in my community, I'm not in yours, you know? So I think that, like, in being able to have the laughter too about it, right? Like, sometimes we have to laugh about things, you know, and just keep doing what we're doing and not let anything stop us, because this is our time. And if I don't do it where I'm at for my kids and the children and the people and the elders in my community, because I can start here, you know, and hopefully it expands to South Carolina and everywhere else, you know. But if I don't do it, you know, and inspire other people to do it, then who's gonna do it? You know, that's how I feel about it.
Ashe, what's at stake is it won't get done, right? If it's left up to them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just want to add to that and say, like, when we're in the community and we're building houses and like people are seeing the progress that's happening, they're not looking at us like, who are you? What are you doing here? They're looking at like, oh my, it's one of us who's doing this. And it's not somebody from outside of our community or an investor outside of our state doing the developing. It's a Black trans woman who's overseeing the day-to-day of these construction of these homes, of the cultivation of the park and the mural, making that a landmark for that community, bringing hope and like joy to people's lives, because they can see it, like having people, older people, this is just in the past week, having older people walk up and seeing the progression of the renovations of older homes that have been empty for 7 and 8 years. And they're like, you doing it all. You trying to show us all out. And I'm like, no, I want all us to benefit from this. I want people to take note of what's happening over here at this address and take it to their address. Because when people start to see things growing in their neighborhood, whether that's like with the community garden, they're seeing somebody is caring about the neighborhood. Like every summer, you see so much blight in this area, like the grass is growing up to be taller than the kids. There's nowhere for the children to play. You know, there are no after school programs or no summer programs that are going on in the inner city. And people have forgotten about this neighborhood. And I'm seeing these kids the whole summer last year, just not having nothing and nowhere to do. And I was like, we got to do something that's not build a house. Like we have got to do that to bridge the connection. Like we need a meeting space for when we want to have events and not have to ask for permission and not have to get permits because we're on private property. You know, in a neighborhood that, like I said, I grew up on the street that we're building on. 20-something, 30-something years ago, I grew up on that street. I was just telling somebody last week, I was like, the park is located where my mom would catch the bus to and from work, doctor's appointments, you know, all of those things. Like, it holds a significant place in my heart. And I know that the people in the community, like, for a lot of people, it's hard getting out of poverty in a city like Memphis, Tennessee, in the South, because people believe that we belong there. People don't believe that we should own anything. And I'm making it possible. We're making it possible for Black trans people to own something in the city of Memphis. And we're taking down all the barriers. Everything I went through to buy a house, those barriers have been taken down for trans people through this program. And I think that's why so many people believe in it. And then to actually start seeing the houses popping up is even more amazing. We have 3 that are under construction now that are due to be finished in 3 months. So it's like, and we can see the change in the neighborhood. There are other pieces of property that are going up for sale in that particular area, like the sale. I've been watching all of that. The analytics around the sale increases since we've been purchasing land over there. A lot of people, that's how we've been able to like get other plots of land on that street, is because people are seeing that, you know, things are selling over here. So let's reach out to these people who own the land and they're actually listing their properties. And then some realtors are reaching out to me and they're sending me, you know, leads on land that's coming available in that particular area. Cause that's what we're focusing our attention on. Our first house is in Orange Mound, which is one of the oldest Black communities in the state of Tennessee. That's where our first house is, but our community land trust in bulk is going to be in the Glenview area because we own so much land over there. Because of course, the prices are drastically lower than any other community here in Memphis, even in a seller's market, which is like been a hindrance. But I just wanted to connect the dots that we're in a community that we came from, and we're putting people back into those communities. That's a part of like one of the things that we're doing is like, we're not bringing people from outside of who didn't grow up in South Memphis, who haven't lived in South Memphis, who are not familiar with South Memphis. Because we know that people from South Memphis are going to continue to love South Memphis. And they're going to be able to not only acclimate to the community, but be like a part of that community and not be afraid of that community. Because as Black trans people, we know who bestow violence upon us, especially Black trans femmes. And it's more than likely a Black man, a Black cisgender man who's bringing that violence to our doorsteps. So it's because I've had people to ask, you know, like you're putting trans people in South Memphis. And I'm like, I came from South Memphis. Like, and I grew up in South Memphis and I did sex work in South Memphis. Like all of my life was kind of like revolving around South Memphis. I've never been afraid of South Memphis. And the people who are receiving the homes, they're not afraid of South Memphis. There are people who've never been to South Memphis that are afraid of South Memphis. And that's why like the project is succeeding the way it is because we're not bringing people from outside of that area and putting them in houses. We're bringing people who have been committed to the community into the home ownership roles, into the land stewardship roles in those communities. And that's why I think it's succeeding in the way it is. Because yeah, we don't evict people. That's another thing we don't do. We don't evict people. Like people are going to be homeowners whether they like it or not. Yeah.
I love that, Kayla. That's so powerful. Like the home ownership, the homegrown leadership.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that you're continuing to tend the very block where you were raised. That's everything.
And it wasn't by intention, Naima. It was not like, it wasn't like, oh, there goes some land where on the street I grew up in, let's buy it. It was like, oh, there goes some land. They want $2,500 for it. Let's buy it. And the architects, our architects who are not from Memphis, they're in Indianapolis, and they're working with us pro bono to design our homes with the community. The people who are getting the houses, they're getting designer homes that they design from start to finish. But yeah, the architects picked that particular lot, not knowing the history of me in that street, but they picked that lot as our pilot because there were already 2 duplexes there. And it would have been easier going through like the permits process of getting a permit to build just 2 new duplexes versus trying to build duplexes or because we're doing multifamily units because there's safety in numbers. So it would have been a bigger process and a longer process for us to go through approvals to do multifamily units on lots where there were originally single family homes. So they picked that lot. And it didn't dawn on me until one day we were like doing some production there, we were filming. And I was like, I grew up down the street. I was like, I didn't think about it until then. And my mom had to point it out to me. She literally had to point it out to me, and then they ended up going down to the spot where I grew up, to the house, the spot, because there's no house there anymore. The house was torn down. But yeah, it didn't dawn on me that it was like full circle until we were like knee deep in it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. I love the full circle part, you know, because that's how I feel about being here. You know, like I said, I transitioned here, I raised my family here. And, you know, the people in the community know me here. A lot of the folks that their children were little when I was in the other body, and now they're women with children of their own, and everybody like, you know, knows me. I'm either Uncle Marlow, Mr. Marlow, you know, and so it's like wonderful being able to have those connections, and people love me because I'm Marlow, not because I'm trans, not because of anything else, but just because of what I bring to the table as a person. A lot of people come to me for information, you know, and so being able to build those connections, you know, like Kayla said, I think that that's so important, that people start to see me as a person, because that's what I am, right? And in that, that builds community for Black people, for trans people, for the community itself, because when people come and go, we still gonna be here. You know, we still gonna be here. That's what I tell people all the time. You moved here, but you'll be gone, but I'll still be here. And even if I'm not here, my children will be here. And the idea is them to be able to afford to live here. Because a lot of folks here, especially in New York City, it's like the parents are forced to have their children, the young adults, and the young adults are forced to live with their parents. Why? Because you can't afford rent. You know, things are so high. And when they're building housing over here, they're not building them for us. They're building condominiums. You know what I'm saying? They're not building housing for the people, the actual people that have been here for generations and that will continue to be here. So, you know, it's important that, you know, people, you know, we stick together and we build and we fight. But I think that being available to bring programming and to bring other opportunities with the food, that gives an opportunity to bring people together. And that's kind of my point. Like, I like to do things that bring people together, you know, because we all need each other. And I think that also helps to inspire people, you know?
Yeah, it's huge when we think about the necessity of like land ownership and home ownership for our like intergenerational thriving. It's so crucial. I mean, I spoke earlier about how, you know, the distribution of land is more racially skewed than it ever has been before. Like, and right now, like 98% of the land that can grow food in this country is owned by the descendants of European colonists. And home ownership in urban areas is also extremely difficult. You know, we still see the legacy of redlining and discriminatory lending. You know, our housing system continues to be set up on this racist legacy that was literally like outlining our Black and brown communities in red and telling banks do not lend, so you can't get mortgages in these neighborhoods, and like our communities being ghettoized. And that has so many implications, you know, in terms of what's available to us in terms of our access to food and education, and which communities are over-policed. And property is the number one way that wealth is generated in this country still. And so the fact that in our communities, land loss alone has cost $120 billion of intergenerational wealth from the Black community, right? And those are the assets that can allow us like the ability to take risks and like pursue our dreams and find homes where we want to. And so to me, it's so much about like reclaiming that power, because I believe so much of our sustenance and safety and sanctuary in this time comes from, when I say ownership, I'm not talking about like the patriarchal enclosure of land, the way we think about land ownership, but I'm talking about having like self-determination. We're seeing so many vulnerabilities, like so many cracks in the system that is built up on the extraction of, the extraction of our labor, the extraction of the land. And, it's a really important time that we start to figure out how do we build the alternative institutions that are gonna support and continuing to like nourish our communities, keep our communities safe, because we know we can't rely on the industrial food system. We can't rely on the criminal justice system to keep us safe. And so to me, it's so much about being in practice of, as the system collapses, as the empire cracks, how are we, building the places, the practices, the alternative ways of being in relationship with each other that can support us moving into a livable future, a future that affords us access to our basic needs and beyond, access to like joy and room to be like the fullest of expression of who we are. And that's to me what's at stake. Like I really see in this long view, like both the history we're coming from that we have to, course correct, and the future that we're walking into, where I really do feel like we're at a crossroads that has everything to do with our survival and our chance to, to experience livable futures.
Shay, and it's that Sankofa. And as Marlow said, we are sitting exactly where we're supposed to at the right time. Maybe it felt like it should have come sooner. We know our communities deserved it sooner. These are ancestral problems, realities that we've been navigating as Black folks. And to think about the bus stop that your mom used to go to, and that now there's going to be a park there, Kayla, that will exist, and the legacy that creates, that there's food that people need in communities that they have gotten because of the work that Naima and Marlow have done, to think about the legacies, the building that exists, the buildings, right? What's at stake is not just the future. I feel like a lot of times, and we're very invested in Black trans futures and Black futures, but we also know like those futures are nothing if we can't preserve and take care, and that there's also so much preciousness, right? There's so much preciousness from the past that we do need to be able to bring with us, that does come with us. We didn't even realize that's that street. Like, right, and it's there, and it's just always, it's there helping nourish and guide us. And so I feel like what's at stake is so precious. And when I think about the challenges, I know you also all started to name, we think about like structures and systems, obviously, like institutional challenges, just being Black folks and navigating land and space, being Black, trans, and queer folks, right? Navigating that intersection and all the layers and the history that has existed to exclude us, not only exclude us from space, but even as Kayla was talking about, the violence that still is very real for us, right? On a very real day-to-day level, navigating our neighborhoods and our communities. And so there's obviously a lot of challenges, but as we're starting to get towards the closing of this, I'm thinking, what are some of the joys, some of the most joyous things that help you prevail with all of those things we just named that are going on? What are the joyous things in your work or in the work you're doing that help you keep on keeping?
Experiences like this. Like it's so somewhat like beyond my wildest dreams, from where I come from. Like I said, I was a crackhead, I was homeless, so just being here, being alive is beyond my wildest dreams, being beloved by the people that when I say grew up around, meaning right here, I've been here 20 years, I have 5 daughters, 2 granddaughters, and so like my joys are in my family, my joys are in my village, my joys is being able to interact and bring joy to other people. You know what I'm saying? My joy is being able to be here right now. And like I said, for me, where I came from. So it's sort of like I'm living, like I'm manifesting, like I'm a late bloomer. Don't forget, I'm gonna keep saying that. I've been a late bloomer. So I'm just learning kind of to know myself and my path in a sense. And so it's been manifesting itself because now I understand more of who I am and what I'm supposed to be here for and what I'm supposed to be doing, and I see that, in my personal life. I see that when I walk out the door of my village, I see that being, like I said, sitting right here with you all, going to WILDSEED. That was beyond my wildest dreams, you know what I mean? Meeting Sasha, meeting you now, Kayla. I'm really serious about the excitement. We going to Memphis, Sasha. So
we going.
Yeah. So there's a lot of joy, within some of the struggle. And that's the that's the vibe I like to vibe on. I always like to be optimistic. I always like to think, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I like to stay positive, you know what I'm saying? In the midst of the storm, it's like, but I'm gonna get through this storm. I'm gonna get through, because I can see to the other side. You know what I'm saying? Because I've brought through many storms. So I find a lot of joy in life. You know what I'm saying? I always try to look for the best, and bring that kind of vibration to my own self so I can disperse it out.
Sure. Either of y'all want to share any other particularly joyful things? I feel like all y'all shared lots of joyful things about your work, but when you think about the things that most bring you joy in what you're doing, is there anything that you want to share with folks?
Yeah, I'll be happy to share some joy. So, you know, one moment that came to my heart right away is thinking about the Rites of Passage program at WILDSEED that we've been holding for like young teenagers, like 13 or 15 years old, and just how powerful, you know, this week of getting to learn and grow and be vulnerable together and like wrestle with our challenges and be creative and playful, all the things. And in particular, it was really powerful for me to witness my niece unfurl through that journey. And it did something for my like inner childhood self to watch her in her fullest expression and in her power, like seeing that grow and like, you know, kind of all the things I was craving or missing or wishing for at that time in my life, her receiving that satisfied this inner part of me, you know, to be able to, just witness her unfurl through that was really powerful. And that's what gives me a lot of joy, both through the work at SoFi and WILDSEED, is the way that the flame catches and spreads. Like so many of the folks who've gone through our programs at SoFi have gone on to seed a powerful array of projects and co-ops and farms and food justice programs. And I'm thinking about the homie Fresh, Chef Fresh in Chicago, who's a queer Black chef and farmer who at the time of coming to the farm for a training was so like burnt out and exhausted in an abusive situation with their job and also how they care for their own being, and had a really catalytic time. I started dreaming into this vision for a collaborative food project for healing, economic development and training. It has gone on to like she Fresh went back, quit their job, and then started Fresher together. And it has been so powerful to see what's happened in the past few years. And now they were working on a cooperative farm. Now they got their own land, and it's just continuing to develop. I also want to shout out Chino Harden, who's in residency right now at WILDSEED, who's an amazing, amazing organizer, a trans Blackfoot organizer and community builder, who's been just making a lot of powerful stuff happen on the land, like restorative, like human justice centered circles and gatherings, and providing space for Black, queer, and trans community at WILDSEED. And he was sharing with me recently about, you know, hosting somebody for 10 days at WILDSEED, who for the first time since they had top surgery felt like comfortable enough to walk outside all day on the land and like to experience that, you know, the freedom of like being outside, being on a place that is like cultivated and stewarded and held with the intentions that we've created, and just that level of freedom, and like feeling that in myself and like witnessing that in other people, like that's what brings me so much joy, because I want that for us so bad, that sense of like us getting to be exactly who we are, being celebrated and seen and free and just like overflowing with our divine magic. Because I'm convinced that, you know, every one of us is here for a reason with this unique gift to offer to our whole, you know, and we need our wholeness. And so whatever we can do to, you know, remove the barriers that prevent and interrupt us from being in our fullest selves, like that to me is what brings us joy, seeing the breaking open and seeing like us just stepping more and more into our power, because we need all of us and we deserve that. So yeah, that's what it is for me.
I shade to all that joy. I will say I gotten to be on that land, and Black Trans Media, we got to bring some Black trans folks up there, some who had never camped before or been on a land like that. We got to interview Chino, and that place is magical. And I can only imagine how Ladies Island feels magical. I know how the Harlem Community Garden feels magical, but I can only imagine how that park feels magical with that mural and all these spaces we've cultivated. And Kayla, I don't know if you have any joy that you wanted to share with us before we start to close it out, but I definitely want to throw that to you as well.
Absolutely. I mean, joy for me comes with, every breath I take, being able to sleep in peace and comfort and safety, and knowing that I'm in a nice neighborhood, even though some people don't think it is, because of the people who are living in the neighborhood or the lack of resources that are in the neighborhood. But bringing resources to the community, that's what brings me joy. Bringing a place where kids can be kids, where adults can be adults, where neighbors can be neighbors, and yeah, I think I have like the magic wand when it comes to like picking land next to neighbors that are like the best neighbors to have in the whole world. They nosy enough where, you feel comfortable, but not too nosy where you feel shame. You feel what I'm saying? So yeah, but yeah, like they communicate, like the neighbors throughout the process, they're communicating with us, they're making sure that our land is safe, that the things that we're utilizing on the land stay safe so that everybody can use it. That's what brings me joy. It's just seeing like the big picture coming together. People taking ownership of their homes, being able to make sure that people have everything they absolutely need, desire, and want when they take ownership of their home, and teaching them how to cultivate their land and do landscaping and different things like that. Like, and I want to take it another step. Like, we want to provide, like we have a garden at MSH, our main space, where we, do jalapenos because they're the easiest things to grow here in Memphis. Well, for me anyway. But we grow a lot of jalapenos every year, and we sell them at local farmers markets. And it's a way for us to just like, to add structure to people's lives, to add some type of economical way for people to like make money. Because we not only sell like jalapenos at the market, we sell anything that we can get our hands on that, people in the community might need. We sell and we give those things away. But it's just a way for us to get people, into the habit of doing something daily, something that's structured, something that brings them joy. Like, a lot of people don't know that they have green thumbs until they come here and they're like, oh, okay, we doing this, or just taking care of our koi fish, in our koi ponds. But that's what brings me joy. It's just seeing people, Black trans people, thriving. Like, and I get to see this daily. A lot of people don't get to see that until they see me or one of you on something, and they're like, oh, Black trans people are those people. I get to see it every day. So that's my joy, is being able to have a front row seat to people like leveling up, to people being able to get through situations in a human-like way, even though the world and society seeks to like dehumanize us in every single way possible. And they don't have a restriction on age. So yeah, that life brings me joy. Like, anything that's positive brings me joy. But being able to have a front row seat to people who I know from back when I was doing sex work, leveling up, being able to maintain. Because right now, I think that's what we're doing now. It's like we're in with everything that's going on globally, that we're barely maintaining. And to see trans people maintaining and not barely maintaining, that brings me joy. Because like the 4 people who have homes are living like their best lives. They're elevating. I can't wait for y'all to come down here, like, so you all can see what I'm seeing every day, so we can experience it together. I would love to, like, have the land blessed in a way. Yeah, because like I think that a lot of people don't realize what that does. Like I'm a person who goes and meditates on the land during the process of us actually like acquiring the land. And then after we've acquired the land, I meditate more, you know, just doing things that are intentional before we just start to like tear it up and put it back together type of deal.
Oof, all of that is so much joy. And I know we're at like right at time. So we're gonna have to close out, but if there's any quick things on the horizon for any of you, very quickly, like that you just want to be like, this thing is coming on the horizon, watch out for that thing, or anything you're excited to share before we close it out. And if not, there's already a lot on the horizons that were shared here. The plates are very full. And so hopefully you can see what's in store for our futures and what's happening right now, just through the work of these three incredible humans, folks. Just a huge gratitude to you, Kayla, and furry friend, hi, Naima and Marlow. And a thank you again to our ASL interpreters, Coffee and Rodney. Thank you for everyone who's been tuning in to Moving for Black Lives and Black Trans Media's Black, Queer, and Trans Land Stewards. From everyone at Black Trans Media, stay tuned for more. And from Movement for Black Lives, continue to join us in creating the Black, Queer, and TGNCI future we deserve. And stay connected to Movement for Black Lives climate work by checking out Red, Black, and Green New Deal. Last thought, we believe there is no movement for Black lives without queer and trans power. So from me, Sasha Alexander, and everyone at Black Trans Media, we thank you again. And shout out again to Kayla Gore at My Sister's House, Naima at Soulfire Farm and WILDSEED Community Farm and Healing Village, and Marlow over at Soul to Soul Community, Soul to Soul Market, and Under Our Umbrella and Trans in Harlem, and many more. Thank you all again for tuning in tonight. Take care.